Hey class, it's Professor Nick Sinsky at UNC Charlotte, and this is the follow-up video for Module 2 of Architectural Design Studio Architecture 2102. What I'm going to talk about is basically a few things. How to get a scale figure out of Photoshop and into a vector program like AutoCAD or Illustrator or Rhino, which might be of interest. And then most of the video I'm going to talk about how to extract 2D lines from any view in Rhinoceros and get them into a program like Illustrator or AutoCAD. And we do this for this assignment so that we can construct orthographic drawings of our three-dimensional forms. Okay. So to start with, I'm going to talk about the scale figure. What I have right now is a still from Appalachian Spring, and I've used the method that I outlined in my other video to create an alpha channel, and I've basically created like a hole in the alpha channel that surrounds my figure, and that's the piece that I want to extract. And I showed you guys basically how to make that a selection, and to extract that figure as like an image. But what I want is actually this line as a vector. Okay, and to do that, I'm going to go ahead and actually click on the button to make this the alpha channel a selection, which I just did. Navigate to the Paths tab over here, and then I'm going to hold down Alt or Option for you Mac folk, and click on Make Work Path from Selection. And when I do that, I get this tolerance indicator, and I've had good luck with 0.5 pixels. You're going to have to experiment with this to see how detailed the path is or how abstract it is. Again, I use kind of 0.5. That's the lowest it'll go. You can do 1 pixel, and that might work for you, or 2, but I'm going to try 0.5. Click on that. I get a gray outline. I've created a work path, and my work path is selected. And as soon as I have that, I can just go over to File, Export Paths to Illustrator, and I want to extract the work path. Click OK, and I can save that on my desktop as App Spring. Then if I go into Adobe Illustrator, make a new artboard here. Actually, I guess I can just open it up. Open up my App Spring, create artboards. Fine, just click OK. Now you say like, oh, there's nothing here. Well, the path is there. It just doesn't have any stroke applied to it. So if we click on stroke and add a black. Type it. Look at all the points that it injects, though. At that half pixel resolution, it's pretty detailed. But I wanted that, and if I go ahead and I change the stroke here, you can see that it does a pretty good job of getting me that figure. And if I increase, make the cap and the corners rounded, if I increase the line weight and I decrease the size of the figure, a lot of that jagginess is probably gonna kind of go away. You could also try to go into Object, Path, Simplify, and Simplify kind of attempts to streamline the kind of removed points. You can see here I went from 774 points to 79 points, or to 49 points, and that might give you the figure, but with a lot fewer lines. You just want something humanoid that you can use as a scale figure, so that might be an option. Again, the other option would be in Photoshop to change the resolution of the work path. Once you've got that, though, I've got this Illustrator guy. I actually kind of like this simplified version. It's pretty good. I can take that figure and I can save this file. I'm just going to call this App Spring for Rhino. And you could export it as an AI, save it as an AI. I'm going to save it down, though, pretty far to like Illustrator 10, just because I'm worried that it might not be compatible with Rhino, because I don't know if Rhino knows how to talk to CS5 or CS6, so save it for an old version. It's fine. And then we go to Rhino. And when I'm in Rhino, I can let's try import. And I'm going to go to Illustrator, and I've got my app spring for Rhino. Oh shoot, maybe I needed to export selected here. Yeah, you know, I could save it as a DWG. That's fine. Save it as an old one for the same reason. Somehow you can export it and then you can open it back up in Rhino. There. Okay, so probably fine. Ah, there we go. Now we've got a person. We can go through the whole procedure that we went through last time of, you know, moving the figure in 3D and then rotating it. And then kind of scaling it. Now, here you've got a figure, so you know, you need to do a better job than I do of making sure the scale's right. But typically, you want to decide on a height for your figure. It could be 6 foot for the preacher, maybe more, and then scale them using the method I showed you. I'm really eyeballing it, but you should do better than I do. Okay, and I've got my figure now, and what you can do with your figure is you can make it a planar surface. So do planar surf SRF. That's fine, I guess. And that'll make your figure into a little cardboard cutout figure. Your curves will still be there. You can get rid of them. So now you got a figure. If you want to rotate your figure, you can just type in rotate, just like AutoCAD, and pick our object, and I can kind of turn around if I want to. Probably want to make it so it always faces whatever view you're in, whatever kind of camera that you have. But this is useful for things like, if I have the front view, why it's a surface is going to make sense later when we actually add shadows to it. But for the time being, that's just a quick way to get your scale figure from the slides into your Rhino model. Okay. Okay. And in fact, I'm going to make a figure layer. Always good to stay organized. So say change layer, and goodbye, preacher. Now, the next thing I want to do is talk about how to get the lines out of the Rhino file and into Illustrator so you can work on them orthographically. And the reason for this is because the reason why we do this is because we often work and think orthographically, and these forms can be really confusing when you're trying to look at them. And it's helpful to have orthographic drawings because architects like to think that way, and to kind of help us understand the form as a series of projections, so we can understand that form in 3D even when we're not in 3D. And then later on, when we're talking to clients or when we're trying to build it, those drawings can help us communicate and help us analyze what we've got. So it's important, even though we're in 3D and a lot of things are digital nowadays. You don't want to, don't want to forget about orthographic projection or about the power of line drawing, right? Talk about how lines can help us communicate, and in 3D there's no exception. So we've got our Rhinoceros model, and I have it in plan view. I'm going to launch a command called make 2D. It's MAKE 2D, and it kind of auto-completes just like AutoCAD does. It asks for the objects to draw. I have everything turned off except for the lofted forms, so I pay to be kind of organized. Press enter when done, and so I'm going to click enter, and then a dialog comes up. I want to do the current view. In this case, I want to show the hidden lines. I don't want the rectangle. I want to maintain the layers. That's helpful. So I click OK. Rhino does some thinking, and it spits out these lines. Now, it's important, or very helpful at this point, to not select anything else, because you don't want to deselect those lines. It'll make the next step harder. So go ahead and go to Export Selected, and then you go to Adobe Illustrator, and I'm going to say plan view, and then click save. And then I'm going to go preserve model scale, 12 inches equals 1 inch, right? Because we're having a foot equals 1 inch in the drawing, right? 12 inches in model scale is 1 inch. So there you go. That's going to help us out. Click OK. If I go into Illustrator, I can open up that file that I just made, plan view, and I'm going to get my drawing. So if I look at the rulers in the drawing, I need to change my units. Units are inches. So we can see that this thing is roughly 4.5 feet across, and this other one is roughly, 3.5 feet. So that's right human scale for that drawing. So we're in good shape here. I got 2 layers for this one. I have this Make 2D, Hidden Lines, Lofts. I'm gonna go ahead and change that to Plan, Hidden. And we'll change the color of it too, because the line, they default to white, which we can't see. So I'm going to make it something like blue. And that'll make sense in a minute. And then the next one I'm going to do, Make 2D, these are the visible lines. I'm going to say Plan, Visible. And again, change the color to something else. This way, when I select them, they're going to look different instead of black and white. It's just useful. So you can't see the hidden lines yet, because they're white. Let's actually turn them off. So these are the visible lines, and we'll select them. If I click the little widget here, it selects them. So now is the time in the drawing where you could choose the line weight for what you're going to present. And I'm gonna leave it up to you to make that decision. If I want to do that. You could do, let's go back to that actually. So I could say like, okay, the weight of the interior lines is 1 inch, and then I can make another layer and grab my pen tool, and I could construct the silhouette of the form by using the snaps. Actually, I need to undo that. So you gotta be careful. I don't want to accidentally select anything, so I'm going to lock these layers. Okay, go back, and I'm going to make my weight 2, and I'm on layer 3. I've got Smart Guides turned on and Snap to Point, so this should be pretty quick business, provided I actually snap to things. Because what we're doing is just a bunch of straight lines, right? And so if you're careful, you should be able to do this relatively quickly. And then of course, once you have the line, it's very easy to make your adjustments to it later. But it's important to define the outer edges of the forms that you have, because you need to know whether one is over the other in space, right? Just as we do this with axonometric drawings. Understanding the contours of the object, or what I like to call the silhouette, that outer edge, is really important to defining the form. Okay, so there's that form, and then the other form is a bit easier. So it's just the outer side of it. And I may be actually fudging this a bit, but the important thing is to convey with line what's happening with the depth of the form. If you make a mistake, you can always go in with the direct select, and no need to like redraw the image. Just kind of drag your 1 point to the point that it's supposed to touch in space here. There we go. Okay, and we've got those, and that may be just fine. I might even go in and change the weight slightly so it's more legible. You want kind of a fine touch with these things, and you also have to think about. You might think about the lines that you follow on the form. Let's go ahead and actually delete. Actually, I'm just going to undo Make 2D here. it's always, as you're doing this process, it's a good idea to undo, to just undo make 2D. That way it doesn't create all those layers. You don't have to worry about it. But I wanted to kind of talk about these two things side by side here. So if you look at the form, you can see how this is tracing the kind of edge of the form. I might actually need to go back in on this layer here and actually pick up this edge. That I didn't pick up before. Again, whatever makes your drawing clear. So you've got this line weight, and then you could go in if it helps your drawing. Go into the layers menu, and now let's play with the hidden layer. I can click on the hidden lines, and I can do a couple things with them. I could start by making them gray lines. And note the layer order matters, so since they're hidden lines, they probably want to go underneath the other lines. And that may or may not have information that's helpful. So you could do like a fine gray line. So these are maybe 0.75, gray. And these might be 1 or 0.75 black. You have to kind of adjust it for your taste and for clarity. The other thing you do with hidden lines is make them hidden lines, just to say make them a dashed line. And you have to make some adjustments for clarity as well. And they could be gray dashed. They could be a fine black dashed line. However you want to document that project. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And hopefully not crash my computer in the process. Okay, here we go. And then what I want to do, just for this, I'm going to actually increase the size of the artboard. You'll play with the artboards later when you work on your final layout. I think what might be helpful to do right now is just to... well, I'm just going to show you... I'm just going to edit this one drawing. You might wait till you have all of your lines together and arranged in one layout before you begin to work on the line weights. That might be helpful because then you can kind of see everything together at once, and you can make sure that everything has the same weight applied to it in a consistent manner. Okay, so the last kind of thing that I want to show you with this method is basically how to add a little bit more information by adding in some shadows and some of the rendering properties. So what I did was I just made a plane using the 2-point plane tool. Okay, and you want to make a plane that's big enough so that all the cast shadows of your objects are going to lay on it, so that you actually get that. You have enough that you have shadow, but not too much. And I'm going to go in and I keep the view like the same. That's important. I need that still in top view. And I'm going to go to a rendered view. And you can see that already gives me shadows cast on that surface. Okay. And so what you could do is you could go in, and I'm going to maximize the window actually. And then I'm going to go and say capture to clipboard. And then I can go into Illustrator and I could paste that view. And then I can use the keys to sort of position it. I can nudge it with the arrow keys. And I actually need to I put it on that layer. I need to put it on a different layer. So I'm going to grab my image, and I'm going to put it. Now you'll notice that look at how many lines you get, these minuscule lines. You don't want to do a lot of drawing with this after you've exported the lines. It's very difficult to work with. You want to draw on top of them, or you want to just adjust the whole thing at once. It makes it a lot easier. I'm actually going to, since I can see it, I'm just going to do this. And I'll just drag this here and then get rid of that. And this is going to be my rendering. It's called plain rendering. Always better to be explicit. about what you're doing. Okay. And don't worry too much about it being perfect at the moment. We'll fix that. So I'm gonna click that image and scale it a little bit so that it needs to be a little bit bigger. You need it so that the image is going to line up well with your lines, and I'm afraid you kind of have to eyeball it. So I'm just kind of scaling it uniformly and nudging it with my keys. The other thing that you can do with it is you can type in the dimensions at the top. If that will help you, you could say like, oh, it needs to be a little bit bigger, so let's make it 33 inches, and that'll kind of help you do it without having to pull the handles. 33.1 inches, 33.5 inches, maybe that's right. It's kind of an art more than it is a science. Okay, but the goal is to get them as much as possible to line up with one another. Okay, so now that's like relatively close, and I've got those things aligned with each other. Sorry, I'm kind of a perfectionist here. Okay, kind of. Okay, good enough for the demo. And then what I can do with it actually, and I might move it up to the top there. I'm gonna take this image, and I'm actually just going to make it. I can adjust the transparency of it, and I'm going to make it. I'm not sure if I'm getting the image correct here. I can play with the opacity of the image, and I can play with things like I can use it as an overlay. It's actually pretty good. Multiply. I think overlay is pretty good, and you can kind of adjust the opacity of it, and that's gonna give us a really nice effect. It's going to show us the shadow of that form, and all I did was just capture it directly from the viewport with the default lights turned on. You can experiment. I wouldn't do it now, I guess, but if you go to rendered, you can play with the properties. I changed the background color to a solid color, and I changed it to a white swatch. I didn't play with anything else, but you want to make sure to be using scene lighting, and that's it, and ambient color black. Click OK. You'll notice, though, in the thing that there's actually, when you look at the image, there's this we have the page, and then we have the outline of this is kind of gray. So if we want to fix that, so once you have your rendered view, I usually go kind of full screen, and I'm going to go ahead and go to View, Capture to Clipboard, and then open up Photoshop. And once it's on the clipboard, you just press OK, and that makes a file that's as big as what's on your clipboard. I'm going to paste it. I'm going to go in and I'm going to crop out. I've got garbage here from the interface. I've got the grid. I've got the compass thing. I'm just going to crop out everything that I don't need, pretty much. Just capture the shadows and stuff. And then the last part is, this is actually gray. It's not white. And so just to kind of cure that, I'm going to go to Levels, grab the white dropper, make that white. Slightly blows out some of the contrast on the image, but it preserves the shadows and the depth cues, which is what I want. So press OK. Then I can just go ahead and say, I can save it. And it's good to have a copy of this, so I just call this plan render. We're going to put it in the file, though. I'm going to actually put it into the file. I'm going to say place it. But then I'm going to actually embed it in the file, just in case. I just want to make sure I have it in the file. So I have two copies of it. I have one outside the file and I have one inside the file. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do multiply type. What I don't want to do is I don't want the image. I don't want the lines to. I don't want the image to affect the lines. So I'm going to put it in on top, and that kind of allows, with multiply as the transparency mode, it allows it to. It's the best way I found to kind of let the lines be lines and let the image be kind of tone. What I'm doing is I'm actually slightly changing the size of it because it doesn't come in at the same scale. So I'm sort of rescaling it a little bit. I'm tweaking it out to kind of doing like a nudge with it with the arrow keys. I'm kind of nudging it. You can see that it's not quite there. So if I use the arrow keys, I can kind of nudge it. That's actually pretty good. You want to get it lined up underneath those lines. And then if I go into multiply, I might cut down the transparency to 50%. What I am looking for is not a representation of exactly what's in Rhino. I'm making a drawing. Okay, and this drawing contains the shadows and it contains the depth, but it doesn't overwhelm the lines, which is the key thing again. So, and I might even go down to 25% or something. I can't stress enough, like, you don't want to let that overwhelm the line quality. Okay, so as light as you can get away with, I think is probably a good cue. And depending upon, now these are at scale, so you don't want to resize your drawings. Okay, you can rotate them, you can reposition them, but right now they are in good shape. Okay, let's go ahead, and since I've already got that, I'm gonna go ahead and save that because it looks really good. And again, save kind of hangs my computer a little bit. Okay, I'm going to do a side view. No, I'm going to do an elevation view just because I want to show you what an orthographic layout looks like. So this is the, the left view is more interesting. So this is a left view of my drawing. Notice that in this view, I don't have any shadows or anything. But what I do have is a scale figure. Let's get the scale figure into place. I'm going to move my scale figure and rotate him. This will be a good pairing here. And that's interesting because actually I can get shadows on my figure if I want them. Probably don't though. It's a little confusing. Okay, so I've got my form and my figure, and I'm gonna probably change the color of my figure. So you've got this figure here, and you can change the display color of it to other. And I just might want him to maybe change the material color. Sorry. Yeah, object details. Let's see here. Object properties. Assign material by object. Yeah, and I guess I'll just change this. I had the wrong setting here. Change it to light gray just so that he's a little bit darker. Then I'm gonna go to grid and turn off the axes, turn off the grid, and I'll do a screen cap of this that I can use for the for the right view, which is whatever elevation that would be. So we'll say capture the clipboard, Photoshop, paste, and I'm doing this in this order because I already have that rendered view kind of available, so it doesn't really hurt. Right elevation, good enough for now. Okay. Go to back to Rhino. We'll go to top view. I'm sorry, I'm in the view I want to be in. I want to change the renderer though to shaded. Actually, I don't really need to because I want the line. But it's nice to have the plane because the plane is going to give me a ground line, and I don't want to forget that. So that's really good. I'm going to select everything now. Actually, I'm going to call Make 2D. Select objects to draw. Control A gives me everything. Press return. Then I want the current view. I want basically all the settings to be the way they were. So it's going to crunch. Where are my lines at? Well, my lines actually end up in the top view. Okay, it's kind of weird. So you got your lines. And you go ahead and say export selected. Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to call this right elevation. Save. Preserve model scale. Yes, indeed. Let's see what we got. It's pretty good. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and bring... Well, first of all, it's interesting. The figure actually has its own layer. And so does this object. So let's just call this the ground line. Well, right elevation ground line. And we'll call this one RE hidden. We have RE figure. And RE visible. Looking good. Okay, so we take all these, we actually Control A, select everything, and let's see if I copy paste these, if they come in to my plan view. All right. Oh yeah, okay, so that's unfortunate. Okay, so layers are not going to come in quite right, so I'm going to just copy paste each of these to its own layer, and we'll say paste in place, which is important because we want to preserve where it was in the other file. Okay, copy the layer, paste in place. So far so good. Let's add 2 more layers here. Copy, paste in place. Yeah. Did that wrong. Okay. Gotta be on the right layer here. Paste in place. Last one. Visible. Copy. Paste in place. All right. Then, if this is our layout, you don't have to do this in the same order that I'm doing it, but I would look at... Oh, we need to rotate these too. Let's look at that though. These are not... I actually really want these this way, so I'm going to go ahead and drag them that way. Oops. Didn't pick up all the lines there. Let's click on there. One more time. Shift click. Now there's there, and we would want to. I can put some guides in here so that we can align these. And then I'll do the same thing here. Shift click to select all these. And I'm going to nudge them with the arrow keys until they're aligned. There's different ways to do some of these things, but this is just a way that works for me that I'm going to show you. And I'm going to go ahead and just stretch this path a bit so that I get more of a ground line. Yeah. So righty ground. Ground would be a big, be a beefy line in the hierarchy. It's going to be a higher line in the hierarchy than the outlines of these forms. Okay, and actually tells me that I want to nudge my figure up a bit. My figure is not really that important. I might actually go ahead and make my figure. You want to be consistent with your use of gray too, so it's a good idea to go into swatches. And, oops, you don't want earth tones. Basic RGB, and say like, okay, I'm always going to use this color gray for my figure. It's probably pretty good at that thing. Okay, so I've got my thing aligned. When I've already aligned it, I can go through and just clear the guides out. It's good enough. Okay, so these are already hidden. And consistency, right? Consistency is important. And we want to make sure that everything that we do comes from the same pen, has the same kind of logic in terms of line weight, in terms of color. Okay? These are the plan. I'll just call these contours. Silhouettes, I like to say. But, okay, so we've got our figure. And so, like, things that are alike have to be alike. And so our hidden layer lines, hidden layer lines for this one has to be the same. So I'm going to use the eyedropper and just pick up that. So they are the same. That's going to grossly simplify our job here. I'm actually going to go in and I need contours for this too. And this is trickier, actually. I need to pay really close attention to which form is which. Right? I don't want to get sloppy. Which I kind of am because I'm not really following the form as well as I should be. The drawings have to be clear. And you know, these I can pick out. Oops. Let's see here. I want the silhouette layer. So that line has to be the same as that line. Okay. And I believe that our visible layer. So this is right elevation contour. Yeah, right elevation visible. These have to be the same, and they pretty much are already. Okay, so with those things working, and then the last piece that I want to put in here for the demo is going to be our image. And you may decide that this doesn't need to have shadows. Maybe you can communicate it with line, or maybe you're only going to show one form and not the other. Like maybe it's not important for you to show the hidden lines in this view. Okay, you have to make a decision about what's clear. But if you did, the technique is the same. So I'm going to go in and place the right elevation, and I'm going to embed it actually. So it's in the file now. And if I go into transparency, I'm actually going to use the same as the other image. So if I unlock that rendering, I want it to have the same. Yeah, okay, it doesn't like that. Well, I want it to have the same transparency. So if I look at this thing, let's open up transparency. It's a multiply opacity of 25. So multiply 25%. You might actually take that figure coloring out. I don't know if that's or you might not. You might just want the outline of the figure. Okay, so let's take this and stretch it a bit. once you get to a certain point and you're really close, what you might choose to do is actually just change the width, manually, so that it adjusts the thing. So we go in and say like, oh, maybe 16.5 inches is actually closer. And that's one way to do it without kind of having to do it all. That's too much. This gives you like a metric, though, to follow. Can make that scaling process a bit more rigorous. And so that's pretty good. Again, you'd probably wait to get all your drawings put together and lined up before you would get to this stage, but that gives you a pretty clear idea of how all this works. Ooh, actually just noticed this, that the silhouette that was in the rendered image doesn't match the lines. You could fix it in different ways. You could go back and edit the image. You could go back and adjust the lines of the figure as well. Actually, I forgot to name this RE figure. It's your call. I mean, I wouldn't. I would do something with it. So for now, I'm just going to put it back, and might fix that foot later or something. But that's good enough. So if we look at what we've got, though, we have the beginnings of a pretty nice presentation of our drawings. We got them out of Rhinoceros with the like Mate 2D tool, and we can apply hopefully kind of a light touch when we adjust the line weights so that these are really clear drawings. We can play with getting rendered views out of Rhino, out of the viewport, which is really fast and it's easy to manage, to sort of give us a little bit more information about depth in the image. And it's kind of tricky. It looks like 25 is almost a threshold, really, for legibility. You want to get these as light as you can. You don't want them to overwhelm the lines, because then you might need to make the lines darker, and it just kind of overwhelms the drawing. But we can do things like, we can, once you've got something, everything has been eyedroppered so that they're all the same. If you want to make an adjustment to all of that line type at once, you could select it, and you can go into select same, let's say fill and stroke, or like select same appearance, and oops, except I didn't enter these on here. They have to be unlocked in order for it to do it, but yeah, same appearance. And then I can go in and I could actually, if I change this weight here, all the weights change automatically. Okay, so it's going to make fine-tuning these things, assuming you're organized and assuming that you made them all the same, it's going to make that process much easier. So once you get this far, if you're interested, I mean, the orthographics are most important. If you want to do perspective views, if you're careful, that's also something that you can do. I mean, basically, you want to go into a viewport, and you could do a 2-point perspective viewport, and you can manipulate it. I think this is probably the most useful way. I might need to, do something with my figure. Rotate. This is why we don't like you guys working in perspective. It's very, very difficult to work with. Okay. So we can have a perspective view, and I highly recommend, if you do this, though, that you save it. Like, once you're happy with what you've got, you feel like you've got a pretty good eye line. You don't want to do things that are like this, or like a worm's eye view. Like, don't get funky with it. Don't go crazy. What you really want to do is you want to try to control so that the eye line of the viewer But the horizon line is the eye line of the figure that you have. That's why scale figures are great also. Okay? That's going to give us a usable perspective. Okay. So if I go in, boy, that's really dark here. You can actually, let's try to adjust that material a little bit. Make a new material. Oh, jeez, I won't do that. Seems very dark. Anyway, sorry, that's a distraction there. This will be okay for us for now. But anyway, once you've got that, you can go ahead and do your Make 2D. I'm sorry. What you want to do is actually first save your view. So go to Set View, Named Views, and you want to save that view, and you can call it 2-point perspective 1. Okay. This way, if I close this, you can always get back to it. So I have different views. I have like top, bottom, left, right. You can always go back to 2-point perspective, and you get exactly this view at this zoom. That's important if you open the file up later and you want to export lines. You didn't lose your view. So from here you can do all the stuff we just did, like Make 2D, select everything, right? It's going to take a little bit longer here. And then if I go to top view, I've got my lines. You probably want to ignore the ground lines for the most part. Then you can, if you go back to that view, because we have the camera saved, you can do your rendered capture as well. So think about getting perspective views that are relevant into your presentation. Okay. The other thing that I want to, I guess, briefly touch on that I talked about is the cutting of sections. So if I have my form, it might be useful for me to basically make a new section. Like we've interpolated all these sections to get a new form. Might be useful to cut a section across the form, like a new section to show something, or to cut a section the long way, like longitudinally. And there's different, I'll just show you basically how to do that. I'm going to draw a line where I want my section cut, just for reference, okay? And then I can pick my two objects and I can say section, and basically you just want to kind of snap to that line that you drew. And you can see that actually gives us in yellow the section. And if I press enter, that section has been created. It's going to exist on a layer. It's on my figure layer. It's selected. So let's make a section layer and just change the change object layer. Oh, good. Okay, so that's on that layer. Okay. So I've got that, and I've got my line. Now I go to top view. I'm actually going to hide these here. And then I'm going to do a trim, T-I-R-M, and the cutting object is my line, and the object to trim is my loft. I just selected my loft here. And if I go in, and I'm going to, must have a layer, turned on. Okay. So I've got these pieces. I can do like a front view, and I have my lofts, and I have my section layer, if I can turn off. So my lofts, and then there's a section. And then if I make 2D these, top view, export selected, preserve scale. See all the stuff that we've been doing this whole time. Actually, just going to open it up raw. was Make 2D. I thought that I had. So the lofts layer is one layer. Okay, then I can undo this, and I can go to front view, and I can select the objects on my section layer, and I can export selected again, and I'm going to call this a section cut. And it says, and I'm exporting selected, and those are the ones I've selected. Preserve scale, fine. But go into Illustrator, you can open up the section cut lines, and copy them, and make a new layer here, and let's see what paste in place does. Okay, well, not really, but they're the same scale, so I can move them into position without like a lot of trouble. I guess you can't actually export them all at once. I actually made a mistake there. But you can use that, and now you can make those your cut lines, and then you can do things like we've been doing though, where we take the hidden lines and make them dashed, gray lines. But that is how you could begin to show section cuts, and maybe that cuts, I don't know. I'm just going to exaggerate it, but you can really show like where that cut is, and you could do that going the long way. So I could go in and draw a line, going like this way. It's going to move it a little bit. And again, go into perspective, my section tool. It's going to start here, it's going to end there. There's my section. Whoa, cool. Build it. Make sure that goes on to the section layer. Then I go to top view. Then I trim, and I have to decide what side to trim. I might choose to trim that side. Now I've got my object. And I've got the section that I cut. Actually, I've got the other section that I cut. Let's get rid of these here. That's a lot of lines. Okay, so I've got that. Plus my line. And you want to do the same thing. Okay, so that's how you get a section from three-dimensional form. Okay, so sections, orthographic drawings, got our renderings in there for depth, scale, figure. Last piece of this is not to neglect diagrams. So when you're all done, with everything, right? You want to take a step back and you want to think about your design themes, and you want to draw some diagrams. And you could do that, in Illustrator with the methods that we've already described. I would just make a new layer and maybe lock things. A trick that I use to help me with this kind of activity is to put a white piece of not piece of anything, white rectangle over it, and fade the transparency, 50% or something, to kind of act as a sheet of trace paper, and maybe lock that, and then proceed to draw my diagrams. Okay, and you could think about what is like the party of the form. How do they relate to human scale and proportion? But anyway, this is how you can begin to think about constructing diagrams of the things that you just made. Okay, so lay those out in Illustrator. Don't forget to add relevant labels. Don't forget to add your film strips and your diagramming logic. We need to know where these forms were generated from. Okay, and then don't forget to finish off with diagrams. And that's it. If you guys have questions, let me know. I'll see you in class.